I'm going Bowser, Sephiroth, and Super Saiyan KO Canon, and them best believe that when I'm done, they know that I ain't playing with them anymore. I'm going Kamehameha and shit, destructiveness, I ain't the one to fuck with.
What's up, my Wizards dev? That's mtg. We got magic stuff on YouTube. Today, I've got a deck for you there's been talk about since before the standard season even began. And now that it has begun, people are talking about it even more because it's probably legit the only deck to show up twice in the top 8 of SCG Open Baltimore. This is Blue-White Humans. The deck is basically a mono-white aggro deck that focuses on human synergies in the early game, and then towards the latter half of the game, focuses on like just dropping huge important things, you know, and really finishing the game out. The deck finishes the game very well because it's got a lot of potent threats at the top end of the curve, so let's check it out. Let's start with the creatures. There's 29 of them in this deck. I mean, it's an aggro deck, but still, a lot of creatures. We'll start with the 1-drops, 4 copies of Thraben Inspector. This was sort of a surprise in the first weekend of the standard season. Didn't think this card would be as popular as it was, but it turns out a 1-drop that blocks tokens all pretty much all day long and more or less draws you a card is pretty important. We also need a fair amount of 1-drops in the deck because we're hoping to drop Thalia's Lieutenant on turn 2 and make it a 2/2 the turn that we play it. So we need some 1-drops, and this is a good one. A little, mid to late game relevance, and that clue token is always nice. If we get swept, it's a little resilient, not much, but a little resiliency, being able to draw the card. If we hit a turn where we don't have anything to do, draw the card, that's always good, So basically a 1-drop that replaces itself and gives us a little bit of synergy, we'll take it. I'm playing 3 copies of Kytheon, Hero of Akros. That gives us 7 1-drops. And a lot of people are playing just 2 copies of Kytheon in this deck right now. But I feel like if the format responds to this deck in any way, we'll see more lower end removal, especially of sideboards. Indestructibility is still important in this format. I know that we've got stuff like Grasp of Darkness, Languish, we've got a lot of Exile stuff, Silk Wrap, Declaration in Stone. Stasis Snare. But also in this format, there's a lot of other things that we do care about indestructibility with. We've got, Ultimate Price, which is probably back. That's probably going to see a little bit more play with decks like this running around. There's also Fiery Impulse, Fiery Temper, a very important card, Radiant Flames, Languish, and just basic combat. So indestructibility is still good, whether it's on its front face or its Planeswalker version and you're giving it to another creature. Still an important thing. The fact that it can become a 4/4, really around the same turn that we're playing an Archangel of Tides or a Jutai or something, that's awesome. It can give us a really high density of threats on turn 4, 5, so that is also very good. Just the Kytheon is everything we want out of a 1-drop, and if we have to play any 1-drops in the deck, we absolutely find room for Kytheon. And again, we have to play 1-drops because we want Thalia's Lieutenant to be as big as possible on turn 2 and as soon as we play it. We're playing 4 Knight of the White Orchid in the deck, one of the more important cards in the deck, and really one of the most played cards in the top 8 of the last weekend. What was it, 7 out of 8 decks played white, and most of them played Knight of the White Orchid. Card has seen a tiny price bump, but not as much as I would have expected it to see. There's a couple of important things about this. First of all, get this out of the way. In the mirror match, the first strike, pretty important. In the mirror match, maybe a thing, especially at F&Ms. The deck is cheap to build, fun to play, and easy to understand. So something like this, just a mono white version, especially, very cheap to build. So something like this could be a popular deck at F&Ms. So the first strike is actually worth pointing out. In the mirror match, that can be important. The big thing about this, though, is that it gets the 3rd white source to play Archangel of Tides on turn 4. However, in this deck, this is a form of ramp in a way, if you play it right. If we're on the draw, we can go into our 3rd turn. If they played a land on their 3rd turn, we have 2 lands, they have 3. Wait to play your land, play your Knight of the White Orchid first, go get your planes and put it onto the battlefield. Then you can drop a land from your hand because the planes that you put onto the battlefield doesn't count towards your 1 land per turn limit at all. So you can sort of ramp into a turn 4 Dragonlord or Jutai or Archangel Avacyn this way. So, there's a few different important things about this card, and it's really a turn 2 centerpiece of the deck. Another key piece on turn 2 is Thalia's Lieutenant. I've already brought the card up a couple of times, but most of our human synergy in the beginning of the game focuses around our need to play this card. Not only can he be a 2/2 on turn 2 fairly reliably, but he can get really big over the course of the game. I mean, sometimes this guy gets to 5, 6, 6 even, We're playing something like 21 different humans in the deck, so, I mean, if this guy's left unchecked, and sometimes he is because they're off dealing with bigger issues, things like Archangel of Tides, Dragonlord or Jutai, Archangel Avacyn, by the time they've dealt with those threats, this guy's a 5/5 or 6/6 in his own right, He can go up under the radar. If they don't deal with him quickly, he's gonna get fairly big. We're playing another Lieutenant while we're in the 2-drops here. We're playing Consul's Lieutenant, which is not necessarily the strongest card in the deck, but still, just like Knight of the White Orchid, the first strike is important in mirror matches or against other decks that have smaller creatures. That's important. And if it does get renowned, it's an Anthem effect for all of our guys. I mean, 29 creatures in the deck. Anthem effects are good, and we're also playing Always Watching. Hello, Ziggy. We're also playing Always Watching, so if we can get those two, oh, you're just passing through. If we can get 2 Anthem effects online at the same time, our guys are just enormous. So Consul's Lieutenant, when it does work, is great. And even if it doesn't get renowned, still a 2-power, 2-mana guy that's a human, and it has first strike. So that's all of these things are good, even if it doesn't get the renowned online. We're playing 4 Reflector Mage in the deck. This is one of the entire reasons to splash blue. I mean, the thing is a human, so you might think it's just cute synergy, you know? Oh, you're just including it because it's a human. No, we're including it because it's one of the top, like, 10 best cards in the entire format. I mean, a lot of people are bending things just to play Reflector Mage, you know? Like the Bad Company deck. Honestly, that deck doesn't necessarily have to be banned. It wouldn't be banned if this card didn't exist in the format. It just really is that good. Just the best, maybe, tempo play of, like, all time, maybe? Like, it's really up there, man. Reflector Mage is just an indispensable card. The fact that it's a human is just icing on the cake. Even if it weren't, we might still play the card. It's just that freaking good. In the 4-drop slot, we're playing 4 copies of Archangel of Ties, and the card is truly amazing in this format, or at least in this deck. You know, with Always Watching online, this is the thing to remember. When Always Watching is out, which we can, you know, curve, 3rd turn Always Watching, 4th turn this. With that out, though, this card is always online, both modes of it. They're having to pay mana to block or to attack, which is really awesome. Again, especially in matches against other aggro decks or in the mirror match. Card is fan-freaking-tastic and is a 3/5 flyer. That's not bad for 4 mana, especially when it gets around things like Languish. You know, one of the big things in the format against this is Tears of Valakut. We didn't really even see that too much over the first weekend, at least. We'll see if people start including that in boards more. I'm not totally sure, though. The fact this has 5 toughness, very important. So, and it blocks things like Thunderbreak Regent when it has to. You know, just the card is good for a lot of different reasons and is just really the best thing we could possibly play on turn 4 in this deck. We're playing 2 copies of Archangel Avacyn in the deck, the other Angel, and this is the best card in the format. Seriously, I really think so. Just the card is absolutely ridiculous. I've played with it in a few decks that I've been building for the channel now at this point, and I am absolutely convinced that this is the card in the format. Just impossible and stressful to play around. Put yourself in your opponent's shoes here, because it can go either way. Either you have a bunch of dudes, the player that has the Archangel, either you have a bunch of dudes and you're swinging in, and you have 5 open mana, and your opponent has to think, oh my god, they might have an Avacyn. I mean, the bluff is good enough, you know? Or if they have a bunch of guys and they want to swing in, then they really, I mean, combat math is insignificant at that point because you might have an Avacyn and just be able to blow them out of the water no matter what they do at that point. It's just a flash flyer. It's a 4-power flash flyer. So even if you're playing it as just a 4-power flash flyer at the end of your opponent's turn, that's the worst it's ever going to be, and that's still amazing. Like, honestly, the best card in the format, I think, is Archangel Avacyn. And to finish off the 29 creatures, we're finally at the end of it. We're playing 2 copies of Dragonlord Ojutai in the deck. We're splitting the difference in a playset of Archangels and Dragonlord, you know, 2 and 2, because they're just 2 of the best cards in the format, and we can only play so many 5-drops. It is important to play Ojutai. He's the whole reason to splash blue, and he's just got such undeniable synergy, again, with Always Watching. A couple of our creatures do. That we've got to play him. I mean, with Always Watching out, he's always hexproof, which is another nightmare situation for our opponent. You know, even if they do have instant speed removal, they can't do anything about it. So unless they make you sacrifice him or whatever. But I will say this, we're playing so many creatures that sacrifice effects that are normally good against Dragonlord Ojutai aren't good. You know, we just choose to sacrifice a smaller guy and not care. I mean, there's really no removing Ojutai in this deck without a Languish. And if you haven't Always Watching, he survives Languish. So it's just really hard to remove this guy in the deck if you have Always Watching out. So just, yes, the synergy really is so important that we have got to shoehorn him in. 7 spells in the deck, 3 of them are enchantments. We're playing 3 Always Watching, which I've already talked about a lot, so I'm not going to cover it too much. Just incredible synergy with Archangel of Ties, Dragon Lord Jutai, and it's an Anthem effect, and we have 29 creatures. And it's Vigilance, which is really good in mirror matches and stuff. Just card is ridiculously fantastic. We don't necessarily want to play 4. Once we have 1, it's doing a ton of work for us already. We don't want to see it all day, and we need to make room for more important creatures and things like that. So we don't want to play all 4 copies, but once we get 1 online, it's just absolutely bonkers. And we're playing 4 pieces of removal in the deck, 3 Declaration in Stone, and 1 main board copy of Stasis Snare. A lot of people will play 4 Declaration and no Snare. I think it is important to have at least 1 main board way of dealing with Profane Prince once Westvale Abbey turns into him. Just Westvale Abbey turned out to be one of the most important cards in the whole format over the weekend. So we absolutely have to have a main deck way of dealing with him at instant speed. And Stasis Snare is probably the easiest way of doing that, at least for us. So let's play at least 1 copy of that. But Declaration is obviously, 2-mana exile, so let's play some copies of that too. 24 lands in the deck, and it's a pretty no-brainer mana base, Some blue sources, some white sources, some dual lands, and obviously some Westvale Abbey, since we're playing 29 creatures. Let's play Westvale Abbey, and, later on in the game, we want something to do with some of these guys. Thraben Inspector, Knight of the White Orchid has already sort of served its purpose. Consul's Lieutenant, if it's not renowned, is more or less useless by turn 5 or 6. So, it's just something to do with your smaller guys that you've sort of outlived the, the purpose of. Here's our mostly self-explanatory sideboard here, just a lot of removal and counter spells and things like that. Negate is a very good card in this format. I want to point that out. You can take out Planeswalkers, you can take out other Always Watchings that our opponents play, you can take out Declaration in Stone, just a lot of stuff that Negate can do for us, and that's not even close to all the things Negate can do. But other than that, Tragic Arrogance, a lot of people are putting that in the main board. Not everybody, but some people. It's really good when you can keep an Always Watching and a Dragon Lord or Jutai. That's just crazy. And Felidar Cub is good, again, against other Always Watchings and Silk Wraps and stuff like that. And there are some other problem enchantments, but most everything is more or less self-explanatory. Here are the power rankings for the deck. A final score of 70 points, which is tied for the highest, I think. I'm pretty sure, if memory serves, the highest deck we've ever done on the channel. So, I think that 4 or 5 decks at this point have reached 70, but it's very hard to get over that mark, and I'm really tempted to give it an extra point in something like versatility or resiliency, but truth be told, the deck is not quite versatile. It's just an on-curve aggro deck that wants to do exactly what it wants to do, and there's not much wiggle room from that, so it's not a super versatile deck. It does have a pretty high amount of synergy, but not necessarily versatility. And in resiliency, we can still get swept by a Languish and be in trouble. Sure, we have Archangel of Tides, but if we don't have an Always Watching out or something, like even a Jutai and Avacyn will die to a Languish. And in the early game, before we can play an Archangel, then we can still get like Radiant Flames, Kozilek's Return, Flaying Tendrils. So, we have a lot to worry about is all I'm saying. That said, though, we do play a lot of the more powerful cards in the entire format. Our speed is relatively high, our offense is relatively high, we have some defensive pieces, we have a really good strategy game 1, just play extremely proactively, we're just trying to play the best thing that we could possibly play on turn 2, 3, 4, 5, we're just dropping the best cards in the format on each successive turn. So the deck is just really good in that way and manages synergy. That's the thing that makes the deck really good. So something like Abzan last season played the best cards in the format every turn. It had the turn 3 Anafenza, turn 4 Siege Rhino, just the best drops on every turn, but it had no synergy really. This deck plays the best drops on every turn and has good synergy, so that's usually makes for a really good deck. Altogether, the deck's going to cost you anywhere between about $350 and $400 on TCG Player to make. That's actually not that bad. I mean, that's still like a playset of Jaces, right? So, and this is a blue deck that doesn't play Jace, so that's cool right there. But just for a playset of Jaces, you can have this thing that top-aided twice at the first big open event, and I think it's a deck that'll probably at least try and stick around. It's back to the drawing board a little bit for the deck, but I've tweaked a lot of things in the sideboard. I've tweaked some things in the main deck, namely 3 copies of Kithion and 2 copies of Consul's Lieutenant, which most people are playing 3 copies. There's definitely more tweaking to be done, but this is sort of the base version of the deck at this point. We'll see what happens moving forward, but I do think the deck is real in the format, and we'll at least try to remain a presence until a Jutai rotates. That's all I got for now, but I'm working on some stuff. Doing blue-black zombies right now. I'm thinking about doing a double deck tech, blue-black zombies, Sultai zombies. We'll talk about that. I've got an angle on it. I'm not sure if it's going to work. We'll talk about it later. I'm also doing Cryptolith right now. I'm very impressed with that card in the testing I'm doing for it right now. So I really want to build like a $15 or $20 Cryptolith Right deck and build that and bring that to you guys, because I'm fairly excited about it actually. If you enjoyed the content, do me a solid like, share, comment, or subscribe if you're new. If you haven't done that yet, that's important to do that. And we'll see you guys later. I'm Dev. This is Ziggy from SBMTG. Thanks for watching, my wizards. Don't give me that look.